Welcome to another edition of Your Daily Five. I'm your co-host, John Colucci. With me today, Professor Bruce Fraser. Professor, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me along.
Absolutely. Well, today we're talking the MACDelicious. We've got some very interesting scanning implications for the MACD. That's a favorite tool of yours, if I'm not mistaken, Professor.
Well, that title is cheeky.
Indeed, it
Uh,
is.
It is. It is a favorite tool, and I'm thrilled that we get to talk about
Great. Let's take a quick look here. Here's an example of the MACD, and the MACD is comprised of the MACD line, which surveys the difference between a 12-period EMA and 26-period EMA. That's the black line, is the difference. And then we have the red line, which is called the signal line, and that's a 9-period moving average of the other line. So also have the histogram, which is its whole thing in and of itself. And the histogram looks at the difference between the MACD and the signal line. This is a very, very sophisticated multi-level indicator, and it measures both trend and momentum. So here's a little blurb about the MACD that you can take a look at your own leisure. But basically, we're looking at the movement of the MACD line in relation to the signal, and we're going to be using it for the purposes of looking at increasing momentum. But first, I want to show you a slide from Professor Bruce that looks at a different application of the MACD. What do we have here, Professor?
This is a very long-term chart of the S&P 500 index. This actually goes back, this chart, to 2003. It really illustrates the secular uptrend that started in 2009. And what I really like about MACD as a tool is that it's great at visualizing cycles. And so whether you're looking at monthly data, which is very long-term on the MACD, or looking at daily or intraday data, you're looking at cycles that correspond with those time frames. And note how the MACD stays above zero all the way through from about 2010 all the way to the end of 2021, and it stays above the zero line and then has that big bulge at the end and turns down. And the beautiful signal that it gave, and I showed this chart at the time, of crossing the signal line. And then also, I love the way the histogram is such a great visual and is either above or below zero. And so being below zero is a sign, especially on longer term charts, that we're going into some kind of a negative cycle for some period of time. So a wonderful visualization technique.
The area that we're going to be focusing in is right here. This is the area, the type of action that our scan is going to look for. And look at how important this initial cross here, moving up above into the positive area. The histogram is up, but it kept that all the way through until we had this massive throw over and back down, and we're in the back down part right now. So isn't that an interesting area conceptually to look at? Our MACD is right there. We're going to take a look at that right now. So when we look for that using the scan engine, we have the MACD signal line greater than zero, so that's the red line from the chart. But we're also asking that the MACD line itself be greater than the signal line. Just two very, very simple lines of code to express the relationship that we want to see. We're going to search for this in some major indices, the Dow, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and also the mid-cap SP 400. We're going to sort this by the value of the MACD line itself. That's a really neat thing on the ranking level, is that the MACD has a specific value. And that's mentioned earlier, Professor Bruce, it was above zero. That's the value of the MACD line. It got all the way up to 400 on Professor's chart. So Let's take a look at what we get when we run that. Out of, say, almost 1,000 candidates, we have 167 burgeoning momentum areas, and look at the aggregation of momentum plays, consumer discretionary. Isn't that interesting? In times of great financial stress for many, many people, we have a lot of retailers and discretionary items packing the front end of our list. What do you think there, Professor?
Well, we talked in the last power charting tight money timing about green shoots, showed some examples, and this really is, in a way, at this time, a green shoots type of indicator. So if you want to know where the green shoots are emerging, this indicator or this scan could very well be the best tool, or one of the better tools, for being able to detect the actual individual names that could be the supporting actors in the green shoots indicators.
Fantastic. Let's go ahead. We'll take a look at some of our charts here. So here's Autozone, and this is an interesting retailer. It's a very, very nice company, but it also could be functional in a times of economic distress because people are fixing their cars. What do you see on this chart, Professor?
Well, keep in mind that the broad indexes are very close to their end of the quarter lows, the September lows at this time, and think about where Autozone is right now, knocking on the door of its August peak and its April peak. And this is in a year when we could describe the broad market as being in a bear trend. So also, if you look at the bottom panel, MACD rising and has been rising since the third week of September. Think about this being a cycle. So see the down cycles and the up cycles on daily data with the MACD and how well it visualizes that. And so we can see at this time that the Autozone is very close to breaking out and is in an up cycle. So a very interesting structure right here.
Absolutely. And going to the technical aspects of the scan ourselves, we see we do have at this juncture, the day the scan has been run, we have the red line is above zero, the black line, the MACD line itself, is above the red line, and we have, this is our highest MACD value that we're going to see at 33.6 and change. On the other aspects of the chart, note, I like to, when I'm using the MACD, I like to put the 12 and the 26 right on the chart, because the MACD is the synthesis and analysis of the relationship of the 12 and 26, helps reinforce an analysis if those moving averages are directly on the chart. A lot of positive things here. Balance of volume is up. We're not oversold. We're staying up above 50 even on the pullbacks. And look at the beautiful history on the relative strength. A lot to like on this chart, wouldn't you say, Professor?
Very much so. Yeah, it's a great structure. And also think of the MACD in this capacity as being sort of a relative strength ranking tool, because the way that John has set the scan up, the highest MACDs are first. So we should see the better performing individual stocks at the top of the list, working our way down.
Yes. Now, the speed with which the line turns up is also important too, and we do see that here with Netflix. Look at the big jump in Netflix, just crossed the 12 and 26, but look at the parabolic slope on that one. Not a particularly super high number. It's high for the list, but 33 versus 9. And look at the structures that have formed here in Netflix. We had a long basing structure here, an attempt to move up and out, which really extended into another long structure, and we're breaking out really as we speak up near the 70 mark there, and the balance of volume is up, MACD is up, relative strength turning up. A lot to like here also, wouldn't you say, Professor?
A beautiful accumulation type structure, jumping up and out on good earnings, so good news is driving it out. And I would just make one additional point about this chart. January, February, you can see that there's a cyclic rise in the MACD indicator, but the stock itself is flat to down throughout that period. We'll notice that the MACD never gets above the zero line. And so it's very important that you confirm the upward trend of the MACD with a cross above zero to show that it is in a good upward trend. And so that's another aspect of this great indicator that you can use, is whether it's above or below zero.
Fantastic. And that is one of our scan elements, is the signal line has to be greater than zero and the MACD line has to be greater than the signal, thus also above zero. Here's SLM Holdings, Special Consumer Services, and we have a very nice potential accumulation here. OBV still trending down, but we do have the MACD in the area that we want it. Nice movement on relative strength, and it looks like we're trying to reach overhead resistance around the 600 to 610 area with the hopes that we could break out. A lot of cause behind this one. Your thoughts, Professor?
Really, yeah, interesting chart. I would just point out that in late June, end of the quarter, the histogram crosses above zero. Look at what a timely place that was on the price chart. And then also same thing, end of September, end of the quarter, crosses above the zero line. What a great timely place that is on the price chart also. And both of those kicked off important swing trading opportunities.
Yes. Here's another in the consumer finance area, SLM Holdings. A little bit more of a downtrending action here. The downward thrusts appear to be diminishing. We're a little bit weaker on the MACD and its relationship to the zero line. Still barely positive on relative strength. OBV is on the weaker side, but this is from the very end of the list. This is, say, number 166 on the list. So in terms of the MACD value, it's at the lowest portion of the list, and you can see it in the chart. It's just not as persuasive in terms of communicating opportunity. Your thoughts, Professor?
Only that end of the quarter had a spring type lower low, and then it had a very robust jump off of that lower low, and now it's just trending sideways in October. If it can stay in the sideways area and then jump again, this chart's going to look much more constructive, like the way it's rallying.
So we've got just about 30 seconds left, and one that's perhaps important in your analysis, Huntington Bank. Look at the momentum on Friday, 9.47%, well down in the MACD value range, but nice relative strength and moving up. This could be an interesting one. Your
We'll
thoughts,
only
Professor?
add that the second week of October, there was a very important jump on volume, pulled back about halfway, and now it's having another comparable jump now, which is right into the overhead resistance. Looks like it wants to surge higher, and other banks are acting very similar. Good-looking structure.
Check out our friends over at Wyckoff Analytics, and that's another edition of Your Daily 5. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're going to bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.